Welcome to Growing Up Boomer. I'm your host, Padre, and this podcast is dedicated to the life and times of the baby boomer generation. The show is loosely scripted, and sometimes we'll go down rabbit holes, and where it leads us to, one will never know. This podcast can be informative, funny, and sometimes irreverent. But most of all, we hope you find it entertaining. This is your host, Padre, and I have some sad news. My good friend of 45 years and co-host Cotton has decided to step away from the podcast. I will always appreciate his friendship for all those years and the years to come, as well as his contribution to Growing Up Boomer, because without him, we wouldn't have listeners in over 30 different countries. So please join me in wishing Cotton great success in all his future endeavors. But as the saying goes, the show must go on. So we'll make a few changes to Growing Up Boomer. For instance, we will have guest hosts, I will do podcast solo, and I will be inviting friends and family to test their knowledge of baby boomer trivia. But before we start, I would like to mention we got our first downloads from North Dakota and New Hampshire. And here's some pretty fun facts about both states. First of all, North Dakota, I'm telling you, you gotta be pretty tough stock to live there. Because I looked at some of the temperatures and oh my goodness, there is no way I can live there. Probably because only 4.29% of the population are Latinos. There's no way we're staying out there, man. It is way too cold. Well, the record temperatures in North Dakota all happened in 1936. In February of 1936, the temperature in Paulsal was below 60 degrees. That was the high. The low was a negative 51. And in July, in Steele, North Dakota, the temperature was a high of 121 and a low of 49. Man, how can you live in that? But the thing about North Dakota is that it is the home of the North American Center. That would be in Rugby, North Dakota. Is said to be the exact center of North America. Now, they have a both American flag and a Canadian flag. Speaking of Canada, there was an interesting article claiming that they were going to make Canada a state. Now, I don't have a problem with that, but I will tell you this. Me growing up in the 60s during the Vietnam War, where are the draft dodgers are going to go? If that becomes a state, where do we go? And the other one is, where do the celebrities go? I mean, you never hear any of the celebrities say, hey, you know what? If a Republican gets not elected president, I'm moving to Mexico. No, they're always moving to Canada. So I'm feeling pretty bad here. Now, get this about North Dakota. It declares that milk is the state beverage. And of course it is because they produce 1.2 billion pounds of milk a year. And now, how about this one? North Dakota has one of the oldest rodeos in the United States. It is called the Killdeer Mountain Roundup Rodeo, established in 1923. And now, New Hampshire was the first state to declare its independence from England. The motto is, live free or die. Now, get this. This is interesting. Small business owners account for 96% of overall employment in New Hampshire. And how about this one? North Virginia was the original name for New Hampshire. And the residents of New Hampshire are among only 9 states that are not required to pay sales tax. And it is such a small little state, but due to the landscape, it is known as the Switzerland of America. So, you people out in North Dakota, you people out in New Hampshire, keep listening. We do appreciate it. But now, let's get into our podcast. What we'd like to go over are the wonderful things from the past that we baby boomers remember that the younger generation will never experience. first of all and upmost was handwritten letters. If you remember, your parents would always make you either do one of two things after you got gifts for Christmas or your birthday. You either had to have a thank you letter to the person that gave you the gift, or you had to call them. One of the two. So that was always a good one, is always have a handwritten letter. Forget the internet, forget texting, forget TikTok, forget any of those social. You had that was social media at that point. It was handwritten letters. And how about this? Speaking of the phone, how about the satisfaction of angrily hanging up the phone? Remember? Boom! But let me tell you, this is the funny thing. Okay, this was a big technique in the buying staff. If you were a buyer and you were talking to a vendor and they didn't get what you wanted, we had these guys slam the phones. Boom! But you know what? That was not my forte. I was more like the Don Corleones. Matter of fact, they used to tell me that they were very, very pleased that it was not with the mafia, because they know for sure it would strictly be business. They always tell me, we'd be dead if you were in the mafia, because it was strictly business. That's the way I was. And so I would always just tell them, I'm like the dad that says, I'm very disappointed. But you know for a fact that the big deal is coming. And how about this one? How about kids feeling safe at school? Alrighty. Now, obviously, a lot of kids were that way, but if you grew up in East LA, that wasn't always the case. You always had schoolyard bullies. And the other thing was, we had the duck and drop drills for nuclear fusion. But so there was kind of like, okay, you're kind of safe, yeah, but you know what? Go out in the schoolyard, you're not going to be so safe. The other thing was, in small towns, how about small towns all had individual owning businesses? Now, I live in a small town now and we have that, but I grew up in the big city near around East LA, but we also, before the big supermarkets came in, had a lot of little grocers. We used to call them liquor stores. And I remember my mom telling me, you know what, go down to Augie's and get me some of this stuff. And then sometimes you didn't even need to take money. They would just put it on your account. And mom would come down and she would, she would pay for it. Because the last thing you want is a wimpy kid going down to the store and the bullies see you and they're going to take your money. So what they would do was, mom would send me down to the store. I'd get the stuff she wanted. They'd keep it on her account, and then she'd come by and pay it later. That was awesome. How about just showing up to the park? Now, I was very fortunate because there was a park very, very close to me. And so we had called Lincoln Park, and we would just go over to the Lincoln Park. We would meet friends there and just play. All right, I mean, you don't think that a parent would send their kids to the park now with no supervision? Oh, that would never happen. And how about this one? How about when you're riding in cars? How about bench seats? That was big time. All right, not bucket seats, but bench seats in the front, bench seats in the back. And if your dad was like my dad, he always had plastic seat covers, all right, to protect the interior. And man, when you hit a corner, you would slide across that bench like nobody's business. The seat just go back and forth. But that was wonderful. And then you know what was so good is the drive-ins. These things were so big that you could just lay down, go to sleep, and you were good. And they were comfortable as well. And how about not having your entire childhood online? There are so many pictures on there. Everybody knows exactly what everybody else is doing on Facebook and, TikTok and, Instagram. I mean, we have our entire family life on there, so some people do. Just unbelievable. And, and how about being able to just disappear for a week on vacation? I mean, when now, because we have cell phones, We have access. And not only that, we don't want to get off our cell phones. But yeah, can you imagine just going out on vacation? If you remember, there was not luxury vacations back then if you're in the 60s. We'd always go camping no matter what. And, my dads grew up in the city, but maybe they just kind of got their primal urges to go out and do camping, and probably because it was cheaper too. But yeah, that was it. They go out. There's no phones. There is no way no one can get a hold of you. But yeah, you can actually disappear for a week. And how about this? There was so little city in LA. When I was growing up, the only tall building was City Hall. That was it. So basically, there's hardly any lights. You can actually see the Milky Way. If you remember, the Griffith Park Observatory is there in LA. Yeah, but once all the city started growing, all the lights, forget it. It was gone. I mean, the only thing it's good for now is just for the shows, just the planetarium shows and stuff like that. But it still draws very, very nice, scenic, just beautiful. You see the Hollywood sign from there. It is gorgeous. If you got a chance and you're in LA, you got to see the observatory. Oh, how about penny arcades? Those were wonderful at the time, if you remember. They will never know what a penny arcade is. Now, of course, by the time I was going there, and I remember going there, it was kind of like, the Long Beach Pier, which is no longer there. But they would have, it would be about a dime, a nickel and a dime, but it was basically pinball machines. And that was it. No electronics, nothing like that, just pinball machines. That was pretty good. But yeah, penny arcades. Oh, how about this one here? This one will crack you up. Is that we did not have digital clocks. We didn't have computers. We didn't have anything. So if a clock went out of sync, there was a phone number that you could call that would give you the correct time. And not only that, but the weather as well. I guess times haven't changed much. It's just on our cell phone now, but we would have to call and it would give you the time, and it can give you the weather as well. Oh, now how about phone booths? All right, if you see any old movies, how about those phone booths? Oh, and this used to kill my wife. It used to kill my wife when we go on vacation, because I would still have to check in. Because the job I was in, we would have certain jobs going, construction kind of facilities going. So I would check my voicemail, probably about every 2 to 3 hours. And the funny thing was, I knew where every phone booth was in any given area. We would drive out to somewhere, and be out in Northern California, and I'd say, I got to stop and check my voicemail, and I know exactly where that phone booth was. Not only the phone booth, but also restaurants. Now, get this. It would kill her because I couldn't get around our hometown. I couldn't find a way. I'd have to ask her, how do I get to there? And she says, well, you live here. You don't know? And I said, yeah, I spend more time on the road than I did in my hometown. So, but yeah, phone booths. Oh, you see them in all the old movies is great. Oh, how about this one? Listening to the radio and waiting for your favorite song to play so you can crank it up. And remember, a lot of the DJs, I guess you would call them influencers now, but the DJs like Wolfman Jack, the Real Don Steele, all of these guys were just unbelievably popular. Those were the guys you'd listen to. Yeah. And how about this one here? How about when you call service on anybody, you actually get a person. You don't have to wait 45 minutes and go through a litany of stuff that you have to do to get to a real person. Oh, man. And actually be nice about it, too. They call up, yes, how may I help you today? You don't have to go through all these prompts to get to a real person. Oh, yeah. And being able to, how about this one? When you get a little bit older, be able to just cruise with your friends. Just get in the car, you guys just go cruising. Like sometimes, hey, let's go up to Mount Baldy. Okay, let's go. We just go, Oh, and how about only having at the most 6 channels? That was it. 6 channels, if you're lucky. I mean, now, this is what kills me today, is that we will go and look for a movie on all these streaming services. We'll have used at least 2 hours, maybe 3, and we still haven't picked out a movie. It kills me. Hey, and how about this? We really had social interaction, right? I mean, not Facebook, not text, not anything. We actually had to see people eye to eye. I mean, that was pretty good. And because you had to do that, then you learned how to converse with people, how to read the room, and it was just, that is a lost art. Oh man, and unsafe products. Oh yeah. And get this, we had an attention span back then. And you know why? Because we had to do at school oral book reports. And you had to do them without notes. Oh, it was awful. I mean, you had to remember, and you had to remember phone numbers. It wasn't like today. Man, there was all kinds of stuff we had to do, right? Oh, and then get this one here. How about making up your own games? All right, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have phones. We didn't have apps with games. We made up our own games, right? Or how about, speaking of phones, how about prank calls? You know, calling the liquor store, asking them if they have Prince Albert in a can, and they would say, yes, we do, which was a tobacco, of course. And you go, wow, well, let them out. Then you hang up. Oh, yeah, I just cracked myself up. Oh, how about this one? How about buying tickets for a concert? I mean, to wait in hours in line just to buy tickets to go to a concert, if it's a very popular concert. I remember this story my wife told me, is that they wanted to see the Beatles in Las Vegas. They told my future father-in-law that they wanted those tickets and that they were going to get up at 3 in the morning and go down and wait in line. Of course, he said, sure, I'll take you, because there's no way these girls are getting up at 3 in the morning. Well, sure enough, they got up. He had to take them, and they went and they bought. They must have waited in line for hours, so that way they could be at the front of the line and get the best tickets. And get this. They got the back of the auditorium because all the radio stations are already bought the good tickets. You know. Oh, and then there was a story that she told me that when she was in Las Vegas, they were at the back of a casino, a hotel, one of the hotels, and just then this limo pulls up, and the Beatles run out from the hotel and get in this limo. Well, she got all pictures of them. But when she went to have them developed, they all were blank. And I said, come on. All? He said, somebody took your pictures. That was it. You know, somebody said, hey, this is fantastic. I think I'm going to keep them. Well, speaking of pictures, how about waiting to get film developed? All right, remember the little photo mats and all of that they had to do? Oh, that was terrible. But yeah, not now, where you can actually edit it. I mean, no dark room, no nothing like that. If you watch old movies, you can see them developing film, and that's pretty funny. But yeah, there was nothing like that in those days. Oh, and how about dating? We actually dated. When I say that, I mean, you know, you'd go to a movie, you'd go to a dinner, and basically it was a conversation throughout, you know, kind of like getting to know each other. And then you went home to your own homes, and then you would think about that person, whether that was the right person, what you thought. And get this, they would write it in like a little journal. You'd kind of put the pros and cons. You know? And then that's why you'd make your decision. Well, should I go out on a date again or not? I don't know. Alrighty. Well, but this is the last one. How about waiting to see your favorite program? You would have to organize your life around the television. In other words, if there were a certain program you wanted to see at 8 o'clock, you would definitely make sure you had dinner, that you got home in plenty of time, that you can make popcorn or whatever you want, get in front of that TV, because you didn't want to miss one bit. And of course, you'd have to sit through the commercials. And this is what's killing me. We're paying for streaming service now, but now they got commercials. What's up with that? I remember, especially during the holidays, we had to wait for the Grinch before the movie came out, of course. And of course, Rudolph and Burl Ives being that scary looking snowman back in the day. Of course. Oh, yeah. But you know what? I think we're running a little long here, and we'd like to thank you, and you have a great day, all righty? We'd like to thank you for listening, and remind you, if you happen to have any baby boomer topics you'd like us to cover, just email us at growingupboomer@gmail.com. And until next time, may God bless.